Today we have Surina Shukri, CEO of MDEC with us. Surina, 18 years in the US, and you just came back to MDEC, Malaysia, from Taman Tun girl. How did this evolution happen? How did the Taman Tun girl end up in New York and then came back here to Malaysia? Tell us your story a little bit. Give us an insight into your life.
So I grew up in Taman Tun, I always knew I wanted to study abroad.
You know, was there something that did you know that you wanted to go into finance? Were you a geek, or what kind of person were you?
So I would say I was a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Right. and then you somehow went to the US. You studied there.
Yeah. So the story goes like this. So I was a creative. Like I knew I wanted to do something businessy, and so I thought, all right,
okay.
Yeah, so because I like nice things, so I thought, all right, I'm gonna go and get into a career that allows me to buy nice things.
All right. So money was a big motivator. Okay, good.
Much like a lot of us in those days,
good.
Right, when we were younger, so I knew I wanted to go to the U.S. First I wanted to study advertising, but of course, back then, they say, oh, you're so good in physics, you're so good in science, you should study engineering. An opportunity came about because I heard, oh, SO, they're actually taking business students, and so scholarships. So I'm going to apply for that scholarship and see if I can get it. And sure enough, I did, and it brought me to the US. So I spent my undergrad days at University of Pennsylvania. So I studied both management, so finance and engineering, because they're like, oh, got two. Oh, I'm going to do two now.
Why not? Two for the price of one, right?
Two for the price of one,
absolutely.
so I did. So after graduating, I came back to serve my bond, and after a year and a half, I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to the US.
And how did that whole investment banking thing come about?
Yeah, so I actually applied from here, believe it or not. So I had friends from college that were there, so they helped circulate my resume, and I had, a phone interview from here, I remember, and I bought my own ticket and flew over there for my actual in-person interview, and I landed a job at JP Morgan. I flew over there with my cat and my suitcase.
Wow.
And that was 2001. That was like a month before, actually 3 months before 9/11. Yeah.
And so talk us through that. I mean, so 9/11 happened, change in America. You stuck around for a couple of years. What were some of the challenges that you had in the last 16, 17 years when you were there in the US? I mean, working there. I mean, I know there are cultural differences, but you kind of began your career there. But what were some of your key insights and challenges and lessons learned in your early days there?
Yeah, so when I think about that, right, and it's kind of brought me full circle, and there's some relevancy to where we are right now. And so one of the motivations for me to actually move back, seek a career in New York was just, I saw other people do it, like my university mates, and they were all talking about, ooh, Wall Street, so I thought, I can do that too.
Okay.
And so there was always this whole, okay, let me do that. And there was always a sense of, the way that I'm going to contribute back to Malaysia is to demonstrate that to the world that, hey, I can stand as tall as all those other people that say that.
And what gives you this confidence? I mean, there are a lot of Malaysians that actually have the ability. I mean, you said this before, but just don't know how to tell the story, or don't have the confidence to do what you did.
I actually don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Was this something you drank when you were young, or?
Yeah. So growing up, my parents always fostered a sense of independence. I read a lot and stories, and so there was always this curiosity. So it was always like, oh, I wonder what it was like. I'm gonna try. Let me see. And there was always oh, if that is what success looks like, I'm gonna try and achieve that. I'm going to try and go for that. And so for a very long time, it was just, almost like FOMO a bit lah, maybe. Because there was this definition of success. Like in college, for example, all the cool kids would go get internships on Wall Street. So I thought, oh, I need to do that too. and so internship not so cool lah. Like I need to do that, and there was always this sense of I need to do it. But over the 18 years, like I finally learned, because there's always a sense of not good enough, because everybody else is better, especially us Asians, right? We think that, oh, the Malays are also much better, right? So there's that sense. And then finally, towards the end, I realized, actually,
there's so much difference.
No, I am enough. And some of that was actually after, I went through my own personal journey, but something switched. So towards the end of that, I finally felt that, no, I am enough. Just as good as anybody else, and I am better. But for a very long time, there was this sense of, everybody's better. No, I am enough.
Right. And I think all of us in Malaysia need to have that confidence, right? We all need to.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And so I think as a general matter, for a very, very long time, everybody needs to go through that journey of realizing that we are enough. You are enough. And I think as a country, we need to go through that too, because one of the first things that I said, my observations was, there's a lot of things that we have that's good here. We don't talk about it because we don't think that it's good enough. We have this here, we are always comparing, oh, we have this, so-and-so has that, or like, we always see what's good in others, and we don't spend time to reflect and say, no, we have a lot of things. We are good. So that part took, from a personal standpoint, it took me a long time to realize that, stop comparing. Because comparison, somebody shared this quote, comparison is a thief of joy.
Absolutely. And you talked a bit about your personal journey. And I think, I've read a little bit about it. It's a very difficult journey that many people today actually are struggling with things like cancer and stuff like that. I mean, it's just... Talk us through that journey a bit.
Actually, in the US, it's surprising like how many people are touched by cancer.
Yeah.
Breast cancer alone, I think it's like 1 in 8.
Yes.
That's the US. I don't think it's that.
Yeah, I think even here, last year my wife went through it. So it's been it's a journey, but as we find solace in many others who have gone through that journey, it becomes very comforting, and also it builds a community.
Right.
Talk us through your experience. I mean, I'm sure it changes your perspective of life, right?
So a couple of things, some big lessons from that. So number one, like there was always this sense of, because before we think that we have to behave a certain way, and then for me in particular, I was always this person who always seemed like I was put together, right? Because I was a prefect, I was this, I was that.
Everything was kind of perfect.
Yeah, like I felt a sense of responsibility that I am responsible for. I always took care of myself. And so when I was going through that journey, the big adjustment was letting go. And so, and finally like getting help from others, right? And also that was the time then that I was learned to share, and so learn to be vulnerable. So now I'm actually a big proponent that I go around saying, it's okay to not be okay. Because most of the time that we think we just have to be perfect all the time, And so it's okay to not be okay. Because when you recognize that, when you feel that, that's when this healing starts.
Right.
So there's strength and vulnerability.
Absolutely. Let's fast forward to MDEC and today. So you're back in Malaysia, and you're a couple of months now. 5 months. So it's about 15% of your. I mean, if it's 3 years, it's probably about. If you count the percentage, but
so 15. Wow.
So still a bit of a journey to go. But I mean, in these 5 months, fundamentally, what are some of the changes that you've brought to MDEC, and what are some of the kind of journey forward that you think that the organization and our country needs to go through?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I told in my first town hall, in my first SLT meeting, and I have Hizam here and I have others here as well, we have to tell our story. For me, when I was going through, I was trying to learn more about MDEC. First, I didn't actually know what MDEC was, because when I was here, it was MDC. Okay. So if they had said, oh, MDC, I'd be like, oh, okay. So
that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. Because
so you haven't been around a long time.
No, even they changed their name recently, right?
That's right.
And so I thought it was, when I was trying to learn that, it was difficult, because
information.
The information was not that easy to find. The website was not intuitive. The language was not that intuitive. So I had no idea, like it was really difficult. But when I started coming in and really uncovering, getting to know the business, the organization, we do a lot. Like, because what's happened what's interesting with MDEC is that we have a long track record, and when it was conceived in 1996, it was all about starting the tech industry. And back then, tech was a vertical, right? It's the ICT industry,
yep.
and it's quite contained. It was all about building Cyberjaya, so the mandate was quite easy. It was quite clear. But the spirit of change, building is always there. Now, what's happened is that technology now is no longer a vertical; it's a horizontal.
Yep.
And that is across the entire world. And so over the course of the 23 years, MDEC has also continued to evolve. I actually don't know how big it was when I first started, but anyway, so we're much larger than what we were before, and so we have teams that are actually doing a lot of different things, and it was quite difficult to understand. Okay, so how does this team relate to this team, relate to this team? So we had a lot of time to just really understand what that was. And so one of the first things that I said was, we have to do a better job telling our story. We have to do a better job positioning, what this is. And so I'm very happy to announce that, like, since then, we've actually updated our website.
Wow.
And so, and you'll see, we're officially launching it on Friday. But it is, at least hopefully if you guys visit, I'd love to continue to get feedback on it, but it's just explaining it. Because if we can't explain, today, particularly in the digital economy, you must never take your website for granted.
Absolutely.
Because that is your
face.
First impression.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's your first impression. And also, because MDEC is somewhat of we are a service organization, because we're serving the country. We have lots of different people that have lots of different needs. If you can't guide your journey, like your customer journey, then you're not going to really be a good organization.
Yep.
And so when we were redesigning it, that was very, very mindful. We were very mindful of taking people through that journey. And so I think that's one thing that we in Malaysia in general can need to do a better job of. We don't really think customer first. And so customer first, how do you then guide them? How do you give them the best experience? And so that's one of the first things that I was thinking about from an MDEC perspective.
So those are some of the things you have done now. But when you talk about pivoting off, as we talk about blockchain, fintech. I mean, this week is Malaysia Blockchain Week, Fintech Week, and all these things, right? As we talk about these things, where do you see MDEC going? In terms of the bastion of all these new areas and technology.
Okay, so when you think about the digital economy, it's broad, right? I mean, because the word digital, that's a synonym for all things technology. The word economy, I mean, that's the economy. So what I want people to think about is how do you make sense of all of this? So think of it as they're drivers to an economy, and those drivers are always going to be the case. 100 years from now, it's going to be the same. 100 years before, it was the same as well. So what I mean by these drivers, number one, talent. Okay, because if you have an idea, you have a business, you need people to do that, and so talent is key. We have a big tech talent development agenda, and I'll come back to how these equations have changed from time. Number two, it is the velocity of business. Okay?
Absolutely. Yep.
So velocity of business, how competitive you are, that's a driver. Number three, entrepreneurship, which is the art of creating something out of nothing. And innovation, i.e. always continuing to improve. And then finally, the newer one is inclusivity, because whatever it is that you do, you need to make sure that you have participation of all. So those drivers are always going to be, I mean, they were the same 50 years ago, you needed that. Today, you need that. 100 years from now, you're still going to need that. Now, what's different with technology? When you think about 4IR, what's changed? What's changed basically is connectivity, data, right? And so because we are now living in an economy where we're all connected, and when you talk about data, you talk about technology, you talk about digital, then all that is basically data. Everything that you do leaves a data footprint. and harnessing that is what this new world is all about, connectivity. So data is a big part of the ecosystem. We need to build that. Companies now need to learn how to make data-driven decisions. We also need to, once you have all the data, there's more and more data. Human capacity, we only have so much capacity to process, so we use machines to help do that.
Yes.
So that's where all this artificial intelligence and whatnot comes in. And then the other core component to this is all managing risk, i.e. in this case, cybersecurity. So those are the things that we are now focused on building, and so you don't see us front on that so much because these are things behind the scenes. So we are we're in the process of thinking through policy, we're having conversations, we're educating a lot, bringing industry together. So that is, and then finally, technology is the new, all these emerging technologies like blockchain and whatnot will rely on this as well.
Okay, and we got about a minute left, so I'm going to go into our final quick fire round. I'm just going to give you 2 words, something or something. You just answer whichever works for you, right? So first one was Jack insisted because he likes burgers. So burgers or tacos?
Fries.
Fries, okay, never mind. You're not playing the game very well. Money or love?
Health.
She doesn't play this very well. Okay, that's I'll give you that. World peace or personal fame, glory?
World peace.
Alright. Leader or follower?
Both.
Failed innovator or successful copycat?
Fit innovator.
Roti canai or tosai?
Tosai.
Alright. Taman tu na Bukit Bintang. This one.
Bukit Bintang.
Alright. Now final one, and I will end with this, and I'm giving you 30 seconds to do this. If you were to give advice to a young person who's kind of just graduated, coming out in this world, one piece of wisdom or one nugget of wisdom that you can impart to them in 30 seconds.
Know who you are. You have to do the hard work to really understand who you are, because it's a lot of work to understand what you're strong at. You see, I'll elaborate. My entire career, corporate in general, you tend to think, okay, here are all the things, here's the matrix of all the things you need to be good at, but then you never spend enough time saying, what are you good at and how do you make that great? And so that's what that differentiates people. Like, find what you're good at and then make it great.
Fantastic. All right, big round of applause. Surina Shukri, CEO of MDEC, here on the Leaderonomics show. Thank you very much.